rivers of Babylon. Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. By the rivers of Babylon.
Shalom, shalom, family, and welcome to another Bible study, another Bible class. My name is Uziah Lewy, one of the teachers of Congregation Beit YAH CHOKMAH BINAH, often known and called Beit D.C.B. Giving all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High God for life, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Thanking the Most High God for waking us up this morning, for allowing us to be here with you, for allowing us to expound upon his word, and praying that the Most High God will give us the words to be able to guide his people in a right way, not to misguide anyone, and to present his laws and his statutes and his commandments in the way that the Most High God will be delighted in. Praying that the Most High God will guide our thoughts, not to mislead and not to veer anyone to the right road, to the wrong road, but to keep them on the straight and narrow. Praying for the fatherless, the poor, the needy, the widow, those who are destitute, the poor, the downtrodden, those who need prayers on this day. We hope that the Creator be with you all and protect you. We also pray that the Creator will also continue to guide, keep, and protect those who are in the houses of many doors, incarcerated in prisons, especially those who are incarcerated unjustly. Praying that the Most High God will continue to be with you and protect you, cause you to come home safely to your families and to your household. I pray for all of those who are here online with us, that the Most High God will edify you and cause you to grow in your studies and allow you to understand his wisdom and his knowledge that he has given us through his prophet Moses and through so many of the other prophets and teachers and priests and everyone that was before us. We pray and ask that the Most High God will bless us and keep us. Hallelujah. Amen. Shalom, everyone. How's everyone doing? I pray that the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth, will continue to guide, keep, and protect us, that he'll continue to help us to navigate and, through these rough times that some of us might be going through. So hope that everyone is well, and I hope that everyone is in good spirits. Today is our 10th anniversary celebration, so many of us are getting ready, preparing, doing things to prepare. I hope that everyone out there is, those of you who are coming out, I pray that everyone is will have safe travels to come to us. So, let me see. Today we're going to do a question and answer, so get your questions ready. Excuse me. Get your questions ready as we do this once a month. Take the questions from the listening audience and try to answer it in the best way possible. Bokato Sister Kanzi. So, wait, as I'm sitting here waiting for questions, all right, JDM. Shalom, Unc and Rob. Deuteronomy 14:22. Does this apply to family gardens or non-commercial gardens? Follow-up verses Follow-up verses, since no temple, what do we do? Who is JDM? Who's calling me Unc? I don't know. I'm not recognizing those initials. I'm sure it's somebody I know, but who are you, JDM? Boca Tov, King Echo. Yeah,
so
Rabbi.
good morning to everyone that's watching, giving praise and honor to the Most High. Thank you for the opportunity to have this Bible study this day, and praying that everybody is well as we go forth with our study this day. So we're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 14, and I believe he said verse 22, and which I know is also a portion that was last week. So Deuteronomy 14. Just pull it up so that everybody can see it at the same time. So 14:22. Thou shalt surely tithe all the increase of thy seed, that which is brought forth in the field year by year. And thou shalt eat before Jehovah thy God in the place which he shall choose to cause his name to dwell there, the tithe of thy corn, of thy wine, and of thine oil, and the firstlings of thy herd and of thy flock, that thou mayest learn to fear Jehovah thy God always. And if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it, because the place is too far from thee, which Jehovah thy God shall choose to set his name there, when Jehovah thy God shall bless thee, then thou shalt turn it into money, and bind up the money in thy hand, and shalt go unto the place which Jehovah thy God shall choose. And thou shalt bestow the money for whatsoever thy soul desires, for oxen, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatsoever thy soul asks of thee, and thou shalt eat there before Jehovah thy God, and thou shalt rejoice, thou and thy household. And the Levite that is within thy gates, thou shalt not forsake him, for he have no portion nor inheritance with thee. So Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 22 starts there and ends in 27. And that those collection of verses are talking about tithes and exactly what should be done with tithes. So the teaching of based on how it's done today, and the interpretation of course, of how we bring it forth, within this Bible study, is that as we read within the verses, that tithes are only done in the place where Jehovah God has chosen to cause his name to dwell there, as it said in verse 22. And tithes, as we see here, are from the increase of thy seed, or the increase of the field, or the crops that grow. And also in verse 23, we see that tithes come from, as they give the translation, corn, which is grain, of wine, which comes from people that have vineyards in the land. They have the grapes, which they turn into wine, and they tithe or give 10% of the wine. Or those that grew olive trees within the land and made oil from that, they tithed of the oil that they pressed for that year, and also of the firstlings of the herd, that of the flocks. People took tithes of their flocks, and that is the process or the procedure for tithes. So tithes come from the crops of the ground that people would raise, or from animals that people would raise. And people had to carry those tithes to the place that Jehovah God caused or chose for his name to be caused to have his name dwell there, which eventually became Jerusalem. So in today's time, being that we don't have the known Levites, and we'll go back to Deuteronomy chapter 12 just now. We're not in the location that Jehovah God chose to cause his name to dwell there. Tithes cannot be collected. When it comes to tithes, it's a collection of things. It has to come from the crop of the ground that the people raised within the land, or within the borders of Yisrael, or the land that Jehovah God gave to the children of Israel to have as an inheritance, and it has to come from the crops. Sorry, it has to come from the crops, or it comes from the herd that people raise, or flocks, herds of flocks. Those are where tithes came from. And we see here as we continue reading here in verse 24, because if people were living far away from the land that was selected by God to deliver the tithes, then they would be allowed to turn those tithes into money. As we, again, we just going forth throughout these verses. In verse 24 and 25, it says that they would be able to turn those crops, they can sell the crops where they are, collect the money from that, or sell the herds or the flocks where they are, which, or the tithes which are of their crops and the tithes of their herds and flocks, turn that into money. Then they would take that money and travel to, as just mentioned, it would be Jerusalem, and they would turn that money back into oxen, sheep, wine, strong drink, or whatever people desire to eat. And as it says in verse 26, they would eat before Jehovah God and rejoice there in their household, and the Levite that is within the gates. And again, that's because if people had a large field or a lot of animals, it might be difficult for them to travel with all of those crops or all of those animals on a long journey or long travel to get to Jerusalem to give their tithes. So for those that were far away, they would be able to turn that into money. But when they get to Jerusalem, it would be apparent that there would be markets there where people can buy animals, they can buy grain and things that people can eat. And then they would have to turn that money into something that is edible, for lack of a better term, uh, including the animals. But of course, the animals would be slaughtered and boiled or baked first before people ate it. But the money would have to turn into something edible. So for lack of a better term, tithes come from something that is edible. So now the question, just giving an overview of that and just dealing with the question. So that wouldn't be a situation today where people have a garden in their house or even had fields today, because the entire procedure of the tithe is that the tithe would have to go to the place that Jehovah God chose for his name to dwell there. And without that entire procedure, tithes cannot be collected. So that wouldn't apply to gardens or people that have fields today. Going back to Deuteronomy chapter 12, which talks about, which basically gives us the prohibition of offerings. We can read here. We'll start from verse 1 real quick. Deuteronomy chapter 12. These are the statutes and the ordinances which you shall observe to do in the land which Jehovah, the God of thy fathers, have given thee to possess it all the days that you live upon the earth. You shall surely destroy all the places wherein the nation that you are to dispossess serve their gods upon the high mountains and upon the hills and under every leafy tree. And ye shall break down their altars and dash in pieces their pillars and burn their asherim with fire. And ye shall hew down the graven images of their gods, and ye shall destroy their name out of that place. You shall not do so unto Jehovah your God. But unto the place which Jehovah your God shall choose out of all your tribes to put his name there, even unto his habitation shall you seek, and thither thou shalt come. And thither you shall bring your burnt offerings and your sacrifices and your tithes and the offerings of your hand, and your vows and your freewill offerings and the firstlings of your herd and of your flock. And there you shall eat before Jehovah your God, and you shall rejoice in all that you put your hand unto, you and your household, wherein Jehovah thy God have blessed thee. You shall not do after all that we do here this day, every man whatsoever is right in his own eyes. For you are not as yet come to the rest and to the inheritance which Jehovah your God gives you. So this is speaking to the generation of the children of Israel that were about to cross the Jordan to go into the land of that Jehovah God gave as an inheritance or as a possession. And we see here in verse 6 that is only in the location within the borders of that inheritance the Jehovah God gives provision that burnt offerings, sacrifices, and tithes, as it said in verse 6, can be given. So outside of the land, tithes, as well as burnt offerings, sacrifices, um, any type of offering of your hand, your vow offerings and your freewill offerings, the first thing of your herd and of your flock, all of those things could only be given to Jehovah God in the land that was given to the children of Israel. So outside of the land, tithes cannot be collected. So now it would be good practice in terms of, just to switch the conversation a little bit. You have congregations and communities that need to exist. So members of congregations and communities that exist need to support the places that they worship or support the places that they go to. So those congregations or communities would be collecting donations, and donations can be given to the support of the congregations and the communities to survive. And also, just thinking of the theme of what tithes are for, tithes are not given to heads of congregations or to support. Well, thinking about the purpose of tithes in the land. They didn't go directly to support, like, say, the priesthood. Tithes went to support the Levites, the fatherless, the widow, the poor, and the stranger. So in today's time, just thinking about the theme of tithes, so those that have, well, all of us, that have jobs, or those of us that may have gardens and crops and things like that, thinking of the theme of tithes, then donations can be given to support those who are in need. So again, in order to think of the theme of what tithes are for, then that is something that can be done. So hopefully that does answer the question. There are, a few more places that we can go into further to talk about tithes, but I know that was lengthy enough already, but just wanted to go to those locations within the book of Deuteronomy to explain tithes, how tithes are collected, how tithes are delivered, and the purpose of tithes overall.
Next question is, trying to track it. From JDM. Question: redeeming a firstborn child. Does this still apply with no temple? If so, do we exact the prices of items, then give to a congregation? I'm noted some of Israel redeeming.
Okay, so that would be the same thing as with the tithes. When it comes to the redeeming the firstborn, that would be in the book of Numbers. I believe it's 3, where it specifically talks about the procedure for redeeming on the firstborn. Of course, at that time, the Levites were selected in place of the firstborn at the time that the children of Israel came out of the land. And then afterwards, the procedure for redeeming firstborn was to collect 5 shekels per firstborn. And that's how people would redeem their firstborn. I believe it's in chapter 3. Okay, so we'll start from verse 45. Take the Levites instead of all the firstborn among the children of Israel, and the cattle of the Levites instead of their cattle, and the Levites shall be mine, even Yahweh's. And as for the redemption of the 213 of the firstborn of the children of Israel that are over and above the number of Levites, thou shalt take 5 shekels apiece by the poll. After the shekel of the sanctuary shalt thou take them. The shekel is 20 gerah, and thou shalt give the money wherewith they that remain over of them are redeemed unto Aaron and to his sons. And Moses took the redemption money from them that were over and above them that were redeemed by the Levites. From the firstborn of the children of Israel took he the money 1,365 shekels after the shekel of the sanctuary. And Moses gave the redemption money unto Aaron and to his sons according to the word of Jehovah, as Jehovah commanded Moses. So what was happening as the children of Israel came out of Egypt? There was a count of all of the males in the land, sorry, of all of the males of the children of Israel, 20 and over before they were entering into the land, but coming out of Egypt. So they had to count tribe by tribe of all the males 20 years and older. The tribe of Levi was counted separately because from the time of the situation with the molten calf, and then even afterwards, and even from right here, as it starts to be determined in numbers, that God separated the tribe of Levi unto himself. So the tribe of Levi was not counted amongst the other tribes of the children of Israel. Then there was a count of the firstborn, the children of Israel, amongst those 12 tribes, not including the tribe of Levi. And the purpose of the Levites was to be a redemption process for the firstborn, at that time. So when they did the count of the firstborn of the children of Israel, it came up to, I believe, 22,273. When they counted all of the Levites, it was 22,000. So there were 273 firstborn of the children of Israel that did not have a Levite to redeem them personally. So of those 273, there was a figure of 5 shekels that had to be given for their redemption process. And this would be and that those 5 shekels went to the priests. It went to Aaron and his sons at that time. And that was the procedure that was supposed to be done from that point and afterwards. So when people were redeeming their firstborn sons, they would give the 5 shekels to the priests for generations to come. After the children of Israel came out of Egypt, as we read in Exodus chapter 13, all the firstborn of the children of Israel belonged to Jehovah God, because Jehovah God passed over Egypt, slaying all the firstborn of man and beast. So therefore, all of the firstborn of the children of Israel belong unto Jehovah God, and parents have to redeem their firstborn sons back unto them. And that the procedure again of the redemption would be the 5 shekels. And those 5 shekels would have to be given to the priest. So today, and connecting it with we read in Deuteronomy chapter 12, today we're not at the place that Jehovah God has chosen for his name to be called. We don't know who the priests are out of the line of Aaron, and therefore the redemption process of the firstborn is not something that could be done today, the same way the tithes cannot be done today, but still acknowledging that the firstborn sons and firstborn animals still belong to Jehovah God. It's just that the procedure of the redemption process cannot be done today.
Let's see here. From E-Pen question. Besides their large herd of animals, why would the tribes of Gad and Reuben not want to cross after all their struggles?
The only reason that was given in the scripture was because of the amount of cattle that they had, and they saw the land that was just conquered, and they just took the opportunity to stay in that land and not want to cross over. We know that from what we read that that territory from Sihon, the king of the Amorites, and Og, the king of Bashan, was not part of the territory that was originally or initially given to the children of Israel. Also, we read, in the book of Ezekiel, in the future, when it comes to the redemption of the children of Israel, those lands are still not going to be part of the land of Israel. But Moses took the tribes of Reuben and Gad at their word that they would help, that they would cross the Jordan, help fight with the children of Israel, and then go back and reclaim those lands. But again, those lands were not given by Jehovah God. They were conquered by the children of Israel, and those 2 tribes, or eventually we became 2.5 tribes, took possession of that land based on the promise that they made to Moses. But again, just referring to the question of than what we read, there's nothing else to specify why those tribes didn't want to possess land on the other side of the Jordan, other than what they saw the land they were in currently, that it was good.
Things they don't discuss in church rights. According to Malachi chapter 3, verses 8 through 10, isn't tithes being promoted here as a prosperity gospel?
Yeah, tithes are promoted overall, but amongst the people that were able to give tithes properly. And what we see in the book of Malachi, this was one of the final warnings to the children of Israel. And so therefore, along with it wasn't just tithes, it was the offerings overall that Jehovah God was telling the children of Israel that they should be giving. So in Malachi chapter 3, we can start from verse 6. For I, Jehovah, change not, and you, O sons of Jacob, are not consumed. From the days of your fathers, you have turned aside from mine ordinances and have not kept them. Return unto me, and I will return unto you, says Jehovah of hosts. But you say, wherein shall we return? Will a man rob God? Yet you rob me. But you say, wherein have we robbed thee? In tithes and heave offerings. You are cursed with the curse, yet you rob me, even this whole nation. Bring ye the whole tithe in the storehouse, that there may be food in my house, and try me now herewith, saith Jehovah of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall be more than sufficiency. And I will rebuke the devourer for your good, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your land, neither shall your vine cast its fruit before the time in the field, says Jehovah of hosts. So the verse in the question specifically is talking about verse 10, which says, bring ye the whole tithe. But as we continue reading, it says, bring ye the whole tithe into the storehouse. Then it continues to say that there may be food in my house. So that relates to what we read in Deuteronomy chapter 14, that the tithes had to be brought to the location that Jehovah God has chosen for his name to be called. And therefore, when the people would bring their tithes to that location, then Jehovah God will bless them. Malachi is speaking to the generation of the people that have returned to the land during the time of, during what we read in the books of Ezra and Nehemiah. But it's actually the initial generation that came in with Zerubbabel, prior to Ezra and his tenure in being the priest for the children of Israel at that time. So Malachi is speaking to the generation that had just returned when the process of building the house of God, but they were returning to their old ways, or the ways that caused Jehovah God to send them into Babylonian captivity, by wronging one another and also not bringing the tithes and the offerings that they were supposed to bring. So this, in Malachi, God is talking about bringing the tithes, and also he mentioned the heave offerings, which we know heave offerings as well as any offerings cannot be brought today as well. So even within these verses that we see here in Malachi, God is telling the children of Israel to bring their tithes and their offerings to his house. And once his house is full with the tithes and the offerings, and of course the tithes will be distributed to the poor, the widow, the fatherless, and the stranger, then the people would be blessed because they were doing the things that they were supposed to do. So again, in today's time, tithes will not be collected because they will not be distributed to the proper place where they were supposed to go to.
Also, when it comes to the tithes, the tithes go to a particular set of people, right, Rabbi? Can you explain that?
Yeah, it goes to the Levites, the widow, the fatherless, the poor, and the stranger. So we read that read that, and you can read that in Deuteronomy 14. There's also something else that we can read in Deuteronomy chapter 26. Now, in Deuteronomy chapter 26, we'll start from verse 12. And it says, when thou hast made an end of tithing all the tithe of thine increase in the 3rd year, which is the year of tithing, and hast given it unto the Levite, to the stranger, to the fatherless, and to the widow, that they may eat within thy gates and be satisfied. So there's a 3-year tithing cycle. And if we continued reading when we were in Deuteronomy chapter 14, we would have seen more of an explanation of what the tithing cycle
Right.
is.
So you bring it out to the gates of the city.
Yeah, in the
Right.
3rd year, that's when
Yeah,
you would bring it,
the
the
3rd year.
tithes within your own gates. So for
Right.
2 years straight, you bring it to Jerusalem. The 3rd year, you keep it within your gates,
Gates.
but it still would be distributed, as it said here in Deuteronomy 26, to the Levite, to the stranger, to the fatherless, and to the widow, that they may eat within thy gates and be satisfied. So at the end of that 3-year cycle, you did your 2 years bringing the tithes to Jerusalem. You did your 1 year bringing or keeping the tithes in your city and distributing there. Then in verse 13 it says, "Then thou shalt say before Jehovah thy God, I have put away the hollow things out of my house, and also have given them unto the Levite and unto the stranger, to the fathers and to the widow, according to all thy commandment which thou hast commanded me. I have not transgressed any of thy commandments, neither have I forgotten them. I have not eaten thereof in my mourning, neither have I put away thereof being unclean, nor given thereof for the dead. I have hearkened unto the voice of Jehovah my God. I have done according to all that thou hast commanded me. Look forth from thy holy habitation from heaven, and bless thy people Israel and the land which thou hast given us, as thou didst swear unto our fathers, a land flowing with milk and honey." So when people give their tithes, they have to make this declaration afterwards. And again, this declaration will be made at the end of every 3-year tithing cycle. So you would have to, if you're giving tithes, you have to declare to Jehovah God that you gave your tithes to the Levite, to the stranger, to the fatherless, and to the widow, according to all. And this is going back to verse 13, according to all that Jehovah God had commanded, and you professing that you did not transgress the commandments, and you have not forgotten them, in terms of giving the tithes to the proper people. And you also acknowledge within that the tithes are holy. So you start the declaration saying that I have put away the hollow things out of my house. And then you mentioned who you gave the tithes to, which are the Levite, the stranger, the fatherless, the widow. And you mentioned that you didn't eat of it in your mourning. You didn't put away the tithes that are holy while you're unclean. So there's an entire procedure that goes along with giving tithes, and also with the redemption of the firstborn. And the beginning of Deuteronomy chapter 26 gives you the declaration that you would make when you are giving of the firstborn of your animals. So it starts off with that, and then Deuteronomy 26 gives the declaration that someone would make when they give of the tithes. So all of these things, there are various places within the Holy Scriptures that talk about tithes and the procedure of tithes, who they go to, what they come from, and what is to be said after the tithes are given. So if people are not making this declaration here, as it says specifically in Deuteronomy 26, then they're not properly giving tithes. Because again, this is also a commandment that has to be done when giving tithes, that you make this declaration after you give the tithes. And you have to give the tithes, or you have to make this declaration, understanding everything that this declaration is saying that you're doing as you're giving the tithes.
Also, just going back to the question, whether it being a prosperity, what was the question? Whether if it was a prosperity gospel. So as we see with the tithes, who is given to and what is for, what is for and who is given to, it would show you that was more of a, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, Rabbi, more of a cooperative, right? You get the produce, you get this, you present it before the Most High, 2 years, and then the 3rd year in whatever cities that you're in, but then it's shared amongst the fatherless, the widow, the Levites, and all the people that are downtrodden and destitute. Now the Levite, the priest, and all these people, they have to live. So yes, some of the tithe is going to go to them because they have to have a day-to-day living. But it doesn't only go to them, it goes to everyone else that's in the midst of them, the poor and the needy. And that's the difference between what we see in the Torah and what was supposed to happen with the tithes and what we see today with a lot of the ministers and preachers and people who get rich off the tithes but never look out for the congregation. So someone is in need, someone is in want, people don't have food to eat, someone in the congregation falls into a hard time, they don't help out, you know. They only tell you that you have to plant the seed and, and expect something to come out, right? So you got to give more in order to get back. And people keep giving more and they don't have more to give, but they find ways to give more and then they not getting nothing back in return. So the tithes is not for that. The tithes is to actually give to those people who are in need. Give to those people who are destitute. Give to the wife who just lost her husband. And now because she was an at-home wife, she don't have a means or an income or something that's coming in. That's what the tithes were for. Rabbi?
Yeah, that's specifically what they were for, to help community of those that were in need, including the Levites, because the Levites depended on the people. They had, they had their cities that they dwelled in. They had fields that they can work and grow crops and raise animals, but also being separate from the rest of the tribes and having other functions that at periods of time throughout the year would take them away from their families and away from their cities where they had fields, that they would have that they would need a method of being sustained as well as the poor who don't have anything or don't have much, the widow, as you just mentioned, and the fatherless, for those specific reasons. So tithes have a specific purpose. So as we read various sections of the Holy Scriptures, you have Numbers chapter 8, which we didn't read. You have Deuteronomy chapter 12, which we read a portion of, but people can read the entire chapter. We have Deuteronomy chapter 14, which we read a portion of, but you'll continue reading from where we left off. You have Deuteronomy chapter 26, which we did read. That those and other places, putting those things together, piecing those passages together, we would learn exactly what tithes are for, how they're collected, how they're distributed, how they're holy, and the declaration that has to be made when people actually distribute those tithes.
Next question here is things they don't discuss in church. Would Ezra, Nehemiah have asked Joseph to put away his Gentile Egyptian wife also? That's a very good question.
At that time, they probably would have. What we read in the time of Ezra and Nehemiah was about a generation of people that were coming out of, at that time, the Persian captivity, or being allowed by the Persians to return to the land to rebuild the house of God and also rebuild Jerusalem. So they made a call based on a critical situation that they were seeing at that time. And they were trying to get the children of Israel back to be as pure as possible. They focused primarily on the children of Israel that married foreign wives of the nations that were prohibited, which were the Canaanite nations. So actually, just going back, that would be actually a good question, because the Egyptians were not on that list of nations of the children of Israel. So I would actually change that answer, because the Egyptians were not on that list of people that could not be married. Because again, they focused at that time on the foreign wives of the Canaanite nations. So actually, yeah, I would actually change the answer. Yeah, that would be a mistake that I made. I would actually change the answer and say that Joseph would not be required to the children, which would be Ephraim and Manasseh, and Asnat, who Joseph married, would not have been removed from the land. Yeah, I would change the answer and just say they would not be removed because the Egyptians were not on that list. It was the Canaanite nations, and also we read in Deuteronomy chapter 23 where the Ammonite and the Moabite were not supposed to enter into the assembly of Yahweh, even into the 10th generation. Shall none of them enter into the assembly of Yahweh forever. I'm reading from Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 4. So because of that, they wouldn't be those well, the Ammonites and Moabites would be removed. We know that the Canaanite nations were not to be married into from Deuteronomy chapter 20, so chapter 7, but we're not supposed to abhor an Edomite or an Egyptian. So yeah, Joseph would have been safe.
All right. I missed a question from King Echo. Try when you write your questions to put a question mark at the end, because sometimes there's so many comments that if you're making a statement, I'm probably gloss over it. So try to put a question mark at the end of your questions. Proverbs chapter 30, verses 1 through 3. Who are they talking about? Rabbi, did you get that?
I did not mute. Yeah, but I was going to
Proverbs chapter
Proverbs
30,
chapter
verses
30.
1 through 3.
Yeah.
Who are they talking about?
These are going to be rhetorical questions here. Just giving you the answer before we start. So chapter 30, verse 1, it said, the words of Agur, the son of Yakeh, the burden, the man says unto Etael and Ucal, surely I am brutish, unlike a man, and have not the understanding of a man, and have not learned wisdom, that I should have the knowledge of the Holy One. Who have ascended up into heaven and descended? Who have gathered the wind in his fists? Who have bound the waters in his garment? Who have established all the ends of the earth? What is his name, and what is his son's name, if thou knowest? Every word of God is tried. He is a shield unto them that take refuge in him. Add thou not unto his words, lest he reprove thee, and thou be found a liar. Two things have I asked of thee, deny me them not before I die. Remove far from me falsehood and lies. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with mine allotted bread, lest I be full and deny, and say, who is Jehovah? Or lest I be poor and steal and profane the name of my God. Then it continues with statements in the same vein, and then some um, rhetorical questions as well. So the first in particular for the question in verse 4 would be a rhetorical question, because the person started off in verse 3 saying that they have not learned wisdom, that they should have knowledge of the Holy One. And then these rhetorical questions came into place because as human beings, we don't have accurate knowledge of Jehovah God. We know his name. We know he is God. We know he is the creator of the heavens and the earth. But there is no human being that has the complete knowledge of God, complete wisdom of God and his being, and none of us have the ability to go up to heaven and come down. We are not able to gather any wind in our fists, and we cannot bound waters in our garments and everything else that is mentioned within that. So this was not speaking about anyone in particular, but these were a set of rhetorical questions stating that human beings, when it starts up, at the end of the verse, which says, what is his name and what is his son's name? If thou knowest, it is talking about human beings are the only ones that have children and not the creator of the heavens and the earth. So therefore, these would be rhetorical questions stating that there's no human being that's able to do all of these things. And if there was, then what is the name of that human being that could do so? But again, being that it's a rhetorical question, it's not a question that could actually be answered because no human being would be able to do any of these things.
What do we have here? Let me see. Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 15. This is from JDM. Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 17. What do you say to those who use the scripture to teach against men wearing earrings? I used to hear men wearing them mark them as slaves.
We know that people wore, so we go to Deuteronomy chapter 15 is going to be talking about servants. And this also is mentioned previously in Exodus chapter 21. That is where the procedure of a servant that wants to work, because a servant is required to work for 6 years for someone, and then in the 7th year, they would be released. And then for the purpose of the question, if they desire to stay with their master, the servant desires to stay with their master. And start from verse 16. And it shall be, if he shall say unto thee, I will not go out from thee, because he loved thee and thy house, because he fares well with thee, then thou shalt take an oil and thrust it through his ear and into the door, and he shall be thy bondman forever. And also unto thy bondwoman thou shalt do likewise. So this, as well as in Exodus chapter 21, just to give the other part of it as well, or the repetition, which actually, again, this is Exodus 21, talking about the servant working for 6 years, has to be released in the 7th. Then we started in verse 5. But if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, then his master shall bring him unto God, and shall bring him to the door or unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. But we know that reading this in conjunction with what we read in Leviticus chapter 25 is until the year of the Jubilee. But in regards to the question, we see from this that men and women did wear earrings. We also have a portion in that we could read in Exodus chapter, actually it's 32. Of course, this is not a good thing that was happening at the time in terms of the molten calf. But when the people pressed Aaron to make a god, or make gods for them to worship, when Moses was up in the mountain, verse 2, it says, and Aaron said unto them, break off the golden rings, which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. And the people broke off the golden rings, which were in their ears, and brought them unto Aaron. So we see from here, negating the purpose of what the earrings were broken up for at this time. But we see here that initially the males and females of the children of Israel, or just in general, wore earrings. So we see, and there's other verses that we can go to in the Holy Scriptures, but it was part of the culture of that time in the East, or what we know as the Middle East or the Levant, that people did wear, both men and women wore earrings.
E-Pen. Question. Is the 10th anniversary going to be recorded? Well, Rabbi, answer.
I'm not in charge of the video stuff.
If you a rabbi, you have to give an answer.
I'm not in charge of the.
You're the rabbi of the congregation. Is it
video
going to be recorded? Yes
stuff
or no?
For that. So that's a decision of the committee that's putting the anniversary together.
So let's
and
ask,
as well as the person that is in charge of the media aspect of the congregation, that they would have to collaborate and determine whether or not the event would be videotaped.
We have Sister Kanzi, who's part of the committee. Is the event going to be recorded, Sister Kanzi? We need an answer. The people want to know. Someone has to make a decision here.
If the committee makes a decision and says yes, are you going to be bringing your? Because again, you're the media person of the congregation. So are you going to bring?
I
your
wasn't
camera?
hired to do media. My son was hired to do media.
So you have an answer.
I wasn't hired to do media. He was asked. I wasn't asked to record anything. But since the committee, the person sitting in the committee say yes, it will, I guess I would have to bring my equipment to record.
Right.
Right. Just like you weren't at. Well, let me stay out of it. Let me move on. Hold on. Yes, it will be recorded. We will try to keep a record of it and post it at some time during the week. Things they don't discuss in church. Do you believe there were previous human beings before Adam and Eve?
No.
Okay. Simple and plain. That's it. No explanation. Question. Qadim Yah Yisrael question. I'm not sure if I heard correctly, but Chief Uziel was saying that a day only include the daytime. Please explain. Huh? Did I say that? I might have slipped. It said something like that. Nah, I don't think. I think a day consists of a period from evening, night, morning, back closing out with the evening, and maybe if you heard me say something like that, I misspoke. But I know I definitely don't think that a day only consists of daytime. Maybe I misspoke when you heard me, but anybody that knows me knows that I believe that the day begins at sundown. I hope that answer is good enough for you, Sister Cordemia. JDM question. Considering Deuteronomy 18, verses 16 through 18, are people lying when they say, Yehovah told me this or that? Not necessarily anything prophetic, but claims that he is speaking through them or to them.
No, that wouldn't tell us that specifically that. Let's go to Deuteronomy 18. But that wouldn't tell us that Jehovah God is not speaking to anyone today. Overall, what it's saying for that portion of Deuteronomy chapter 18 is that God will send prophets. So Deuteronomy chapter 18 says, a prophet will Jehovah thy God raise up unto thee from the midst of thee of thy brethren like unto me. Unto him you shall hearken, according to all that thou didst desire of Jehovah thy God in Horeb in the day of the assembly, saying, let me not hear the voice of Jehovah my God, neither let me see this great fire any more, that I die not. So this is referring to when the children of Israel heard the 10 commandments being spoken by Jehovah God directly. And afterwards, when the 10 commandments were spoken, the people went to Moses, and as it says here, this is just repeating what it said in Exodus chapter 20, that they didn't want to hear the voice of Jehovah God again. So therefore, they wanted Moses to go up to the mountain, hear the rest of the commandments that Jehovah God had for them to keep, and Moses would deliver the word. So generation after generation, there would be a prophet or prophets that would be speaking to the children of Israel the word that Jehovah God spoke unto them to give unto the people. And continuing, it says, I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren like unto thee, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. But the prophet that shall speak a word presumptuously in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other gods, that same prophet shall die. And if thou say in thy heart, how shall we know the word which Jehovah have not spoken? When a prophet speaks in the name of Jehovah, if the thing follow not, nor come to pass, That is the thing which Jehovah have not spoken. The prophet have spoken it presumptuously. Thou shalt not be afraid of him. So even in today's time, it's very possible that Jehovah God has prophets that exist or has individuals that he speaks to directly and that can give the word to people. Those of us that are listening to people say things like that, we do have to be careful who we listen to. Number one, they have to come speaking the name of Jehovah God. And, as we read within the Holy Scriptures, and, just to reiterate, what we normally mention during our Bible study, in the English versions of the Bible, we have the names, or we have the words, the Lord, and in the Hebrew text, we have the actual name of God in those locations. So we pronounce the name of God in our Bible study as Jehovah. Many people pronounce the name of God as Yahweh. And again, those locations where it has the words the Lord, with the word Lord being in all capital letters, or sometimes just the letter L is in capital, that for the purpose of our Bible study, we pronounce the name of God so we can know the God that we're speaking about, the God that's speaking to us through these words. So when a prophet is speaking in the name of Jehovah God, they have to come with the actual name of Jehovah God or the name of Yahweh God, and they have to come saying the actual pronunciation. And it would be known to everybody at some point in the future what the exact pronunciation of God's name is. So they would have to come saying the name of God, and also along with that, saying that these are the words that Jehovah God spoke to them to speak to the people. And it would also come attached to some sort of sign or wonder, as God spoke to Moses when he sent them to the children of Israel. That prophet would come with a sign and a wonder, especially in today's time. They would have to come with a sign and a wonder of something that is going to come to pass so that the people would believe that prophet. So God is teaching us that if a prophet is not speaking his name, whether it's pronounced Yahweh, whether it's pronounced Jehovah, but they have to be clear and specifying that this is how God's name is pronounced. If they're not coming with the name of God with them, and they're not coming with a sign and a wonder saying God says such and such is going to happen, and as a result, here is a sign so that you can determine that, then we don't have to listen to that prophet. So that's basically what Deuteronomy chapter 18 is teaching us overall. That is teaching us as the listener to be careful of the people that come to us telling us that God spoke to them saying such and such or X, Y, and Z. But on the other side, it does not mean that God is not speaking to anybody at all today. Because as we read in Deuteronomy chapter 18, God is going to have his prophets, even in the time of Elijah, when he went before Jehovah God and he thought that, he was alone, God let him know that there were, 7,000, I believe was the number of prophets, or 7,000 people, not just the word prophet wasn't mentioned specifically, 7,000 people that did not bow down to Baal at all. So there were definitely 7,000 pure people that God can use as prophets. We read about even during that time and prior, there were schools of prophets. There were prophets being taught by various people, generation after generation. So those of us right now in this Bible study may not know exactly where these prophets are today, but when they do appear to anybody, they have to come with the name of God, come with a sign and a wonder, foretell something that is going to happen. And when it happens, then we can actually believe them. So it's an entire procedure. So again, in regards to the question, it doesn't mean that there are no prophets at all today. It doesn't mean that we should not listen to anybody else that's going to come in the name of God, but they also have a responsibility of making us believe them before, uh, making us believe them with a sign and a wonder before we can go any further.
All right. Next question is, does your Hebrew translation of the word Barak confirm that Job's wife No, I think there's a question before that. No, hold on. Does your Hebrew translation of the word Barak confirm that Job's wife and Satan never said curse God, but bless God? Job chapter 1, verse 11, and chapter 2, verse 5 and 9.
So we're going to go to Job chapter 1,
verse 11.
Verse 11. Yeah, this one does say Yavarkika, which is coming from the word Barak, which is to bless. So the English verse says, "But put forth thy hand now and touch all that he has. Surely he will blaspheme thee to thy face." So they actually translated the word or the verb Barak to blaspheme, and definitely in verse 2, sorry, chapter 2, after everything was happening to Job. They use the word Barak here, which of course comes from Barak again. The verse translates as, "Then said his wife unto him, Dost thou still hold fast thine integrity? Blaspheme God and die." So they translate the word Barak again to blaspheme in this verse. So yeah, for both verses, the word Barak, well, Barak, going to the root word, is actually used. Now I just give my interpretation and verse in chapter 2, and also relating it to a situation that happened in the time of Jezebel and Ahab, who was king of Israel at the time, where Ahab wanted the field of someone named Nabal, and Jezebel made an occasion to get the field from Nabal by having him killed. That she made an occasion against Nabal, saying that he cursed God, and in that chapter, the root verb is Barak, which means bless. And my interpretation from just Job chapter 2 and the situation with Nabal is that the proper translation could be blessed there in those verses, and it would still make sense for the overall narrative that is being spoken. Like with Job's wife, she's seeing everything that's happening to him. She know that he spent his life doing the right thing, living right, blessing God all his life. So she made the statement just as it translates here, blaspheme or curse God and die, but bless God and die fits the narrative as well, because she's just basically telling them to commit suicide, for lack of a better term. But going back to to chapter 1, I'll just give this one some more thought before just answering directly but the translation is, or the Hebrew word is Barak, or the Hebrew verb initially is Barak in Job chapter 1, verse 11, which does mean bless.
Also, can it also have like a double meaning, a positive and a negative one, maybe that we have not looked at? Because in terms of the word Kwadosh, right, which means holy, right? And then we have the word Kwadesh, which means, it could be a temple prostitute, it could be a someone who's a homosexual. Can it also be a situation like that?
There are some words that have a double meaning based on the connotation or the context of where it's in. And the word that you mentioned that's based on the pronunciation. They would both have the same root word,
Right.
but the pronunciation along with the context lets you know exactly what it means. So there are some words that can have, for lack of a better term, a double meaning. And Barak could be one of those. And it would just be based on the context that we read in the word in, along with the conjugation of the verb that would let us know uh, what the proper interpretation could be. So
Gotcha.
it could be possible.
Okay. I got to keep that in mind so we could probably research it a little bit more. Can you do? Did you do a word search on the? Well, that's not going to give us an extensive thing. It's just going to give us a meaning, right? On the Safari, when you highlight the word and then it gives you the definitions.
Yeah, I did that. It's on the side. So it gives you bless, what's nail just gives you to be blessed. So it gives you all of these, everything in regards to bless. And there are the occasions such as in Job in these two places and in should be Second Kings, or probably or in the Book of Kings, in the situation with Ahab, Jezebel, and Nabal, where they translate Barak as curse. On this translation, it says it's a blaspheme.
Gotcha.
And maybe there's a few others as well that is translated as cursed or blasphemed. But those are the three that would stand out.
Got you.
But for the majority of the times, it's going to be translated as blessed.
Okay. What do we have here? All right, we winding down. I think we answered this before. Who were the fallen angels? I don't know.
Yeah, so in the book, and overall in the Holy Scriptures, we don't have a concept, or we don't read a specific concept of a fallen angel. Some people refer to the book of Isaiah, where God is speaking to the king of Babylon and refers and makes the statement as, how have you fallen? But that's in reference again to the king of Babylon. And when God was going to bring destruction upon Babylon, God is saying through Isaiah that would be a parable that would be said, that how have you fallen. But in terms of the Holy Scriptures overall, there's not a concept of a fallen angel or fallen angels, anywhere within the Holy Scriptures.
Things they don't discuss in church. In Job 31, 9 and 10, is Job saying that if he cheated on his wife, then she has a right to revenge cheat? In Job 31, verse 9 and 10 through 10.
Job 31, 9 and 10.
Yeah.
Job 31. If my heart have been enticed into a woman, and I have lain in wait at my neighbor's door, to let my wife grind unto another, and let others bow down upon her. What Job is saying here is that, especially when we read the entire verse 9, if his heart was enticed into a woman that was married, because he continues by saying, and I have lain in wait at my neighbor's door. So he was enticed by his neighbor's wife. So he's saying that if he had done so
and committed adultery
to somebody's wife, then let his wife also do that unto him.
The same fate happened.
Right. So that's basically what Job is saying here. And, basically within this chapter, because Job is acknowledging that, he tried to live, and when we read the book of Job overall, Job is acknowledging that he did the best that he can in service unto God. But then there may be some things that he overlooked along the way. he tried to cover everything as much as possible, but there are some things that he might have overlooked. And therefore, all of the things that are happening to him as we read in the book of Job, all of these punishments, Job is saying to himself, to his friends, and before God, that there might be some things he overlooked. And therefore, if there were some things that were overlooked and he did certain things that were wrong, let those things be done unto him. And therefore, God would be justified overall. I'm not saying that it's right for if somebody commits adultery that it be done to them. But what Job is saying from his perspective as a human being, and that's why, of course, God corrected him overall at the end. But what Job is saying from his perspective is that if there's anything that he did that was wrong, then let it be done unto him. And he's figuring that that would be the justification of such. But we know that that's not how God does things. When people do wrong, there's specific punishments that are for those things that are done wrong. So this is not Job saying that anything about cheating on his wife or anything like that. Job is saying that if he laid with his neighbor's wife, then let that be done unto him.
Yep. I saw questions look like they just be reappearing. Like they don't be there and then they're there. According to Genesis, things they don't discuss in church. According to Genesis chapter 10, verse 6, that black people descend from Ham.
No, black people descended from Adam and Eve, or other words, Adam and Eve were black, or people of color, as even anthropology would dictate that the original, for lack of a better term, human race were black, came out of the continent of Africa. So prior to Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japhet, everybody was already black or people of color. Now, what happened after the flood in Noah's time, the three sons of Noah, their descendants migrated to various areas. After the situation with the Tower of Babel, God confused the languages. People went or migrated to, because God wanted people to spread out throughout the earth. People migrated based on that dispersion with the languages and everything else that God put within the people at that time. So we see the descendants of Ham went to the continent of Africa, started to proliferate there. We see that people from Japhet migrated to what we know as Eastern Europe and went forth from there. And we see that people of Shem, their descendants stayed within the Middle East or the Levant region, going a little bit further west, so further east into Asia. And the nations that came from Shem, Ham, and Japhet have been researched, and we also seen the book of Josephus, where in his time, and this is of course thousands of years after the flood, where in the book of Josephus, he specified where Noah's sons and Noah's grandsons became, or what they entered into after a period of time. There's another historian called Herodotus, which did the same thing, and that's where overall people get the determination of Shem, Ham, and Japhet, and where they might, not them as individuals, but where their descendants, and this of course took a process of generations, but where their generations or the generations that came after them migrated into, and the lands that they inhabited, the nations and the kingdoms that spawned from each of those grandsons of Noah.
All right. I got the last three questions here, and then we're going to wrap this session up. The last three questions being from JDM, E-Pen, and Yalito Moore. Question from JDM. Is there an estimation on the upcoming holy days?
Yeah, those dates. We can give them.
They are on the D.C.B. There's a video. If you type in Holy Days 2025 on the D.C.B. channel, there'll be a list of it, and with me giving out the list of days for 2025. So just go there and you could and you could be informed of the holy days. If Sister Kanzi, if you can you find that link and just post it here for the Holy Days 2025? And I believe under the description, it has the written dates, just in case you don't catch it with me announcing it. E-Pen, question: is there any other scriptures besides in the book of Job and the book of Numbers when the daughters received an inheritance?
There wouldn't be there. Well, also,
The book of Joshua.
Caleb's daughter received an inheritance from Caleb.
Right.
But that's basically all tied in. So once God gave the determination that women would be able to collect inheritance if their father had no sons, then that's where the procedure came in afterwards. So when Caleb's daughter requested of a field, remember she was getting, based on what we read there, she was getting married, and she asked her husband permission to ask her father to get some fields or get a piece of land for them. And of course, Caleb, he gave that piece of the land to his daughter, which in turn, went to her husband in the long run. But we do see, based on those scenarios, that, women can gain inheritance in the land of Israel, and there would be certain conditions on how that inheritance can be acquired and also retained.
So my question about that is, didn't Caleb have sons?
Yes.
So wasn't that more, for lack of a better word, some nepotism in part of Caleb, because he was one of the top leaders, so he took freedom in giving her land. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Because the inheritance is supposed to be for the son. So what happens when either she marries someone, right? When she got married, then her children will be from whichever man that she married, whichever man she married, they will be the inheritors of that land. Am I correct?
Yes. So what was happening at that time, and I'm looking for the particular passage at this point, but she married I believe his name was Othniel. And Othniel was from the tribe of Judah.
Okay.
So she was already married to Othniel.
Right.
So what she did was she went to Othniel and asked if she could ask for the land.
Right.
So Caleb knew that in him giving her a portion of land, it was basically him giving Othniel the land. So that's how the scenario went. So he didn't, and she would still need, she asked permission from Othniel,
right,
and she would still need permission from Caleb to even get the land, but Caleb already knew that the land was going to go to Othniel. So
right.
Individuals have the right to give their lands away. That's where the year of Jubilee comes into play and is so important in many aspects. That's why when in the book of Numbers, when the tribe of Manasseh came to Moses and said that, well, if Selafkad's daughters get this land, then in the year of Jubilee, that land would go out to another tribe if they were to marry another tribe.
Gotcha.
So there's some dynamics that's involved with the inheritance, but people do have the right to give their land to technically whoever they want to. The year of Jubilee is just a reset button, for lack of a better term, to bring lands back to the original owner. But in the case of tribes specifically, as long as the lands are retained within those tribes, then the tribes will still be able to maintain that even after the year of Jubilee. So once Caleb's daughter, requested the land, and Caleb gave it to her, which in turn gave it to Othniel. Othniel is a Judite as well. The land will still stay within Judite territory. So there wouldn't have been anything wrong per se in that entire exchange.
Yalita Moore writes, Amos chapter 3, verses 1 and 2 still goes for today. He woke up in our captivity. Oh, that's not a question, that was a statement. So I think we got to the end of our of the questions. May the Most High God bless each and every one of you. And don't forget I think, let me ask the person that's in the committee. Are we tapped out? Are there any seats available? I gotta ask the committee member. Sister Kanzi, are there any seats available for anyone that might want to make a last minute move? Just making sure. Give me 1 second here. I'm trying to share the link to the video. That's the Holy Day video link right there that I just posted. So anyone that wants to listen. We are at our max. So what we saying, we just, if you didn't reserve, then you can't come in, or what is the committee, what is the committee doing in terms of somebody shows up at the door and they didn't RSVP, you turning them away, or you gonna, I don't know. I'm just working with the committee, that's all. Thinks they don't. He said, I called you on Friday, left a voicemail. I know, Brother Ricardo. I didn't get the voicemail, but I'm sure if you show up, you'll be all right. Terry Johnson, thank you for your contribution and your support. May the Most High God continue to bless you. So I'm just waiting for this last statement from one of the members of the committee. You can show up, but the food is first come, first serve. I thought the food was for those who reserved. So we'll figure it out. We thank you all for joining us. Rabbi, thank you for your hard work. And we'll figure something out. Oh, also, we have a raffle. We have a raffle that we will be a fundraising raffle. Putting out all of this. We have to fundraise. We have to begin to go back out into the street and do the work that the Most High God commanded us to do, to look out for the poor and the needy, the homeless, the fatherless, all those people. So we're gonna have a raffle drawing. I believe the tickets are already printed. So all of you that would like to support us in that way, and you have the ability to win something back. I believe the first prize is, I want to make sure I get this right. Maybe Sister Kanzi could put it up there because I forgot what the first prize is. I believe it's something to the lines of $1,200 is the first prize, $1,200. But she'll know better because I forgot already what they are, the prizes. But a pretty good prize is 3 prizes. We got raffle tickets. The drawing will be on November 26th, the night of November 26th. All right? That's on a Wednesday. That's the day before they celebrate their Thanksgiving. We know everybody's going to be off that next day. So that night we'll have something over at our place where we could show the raffle drawing. So we need you all to come out and make this thing happen. First prize is $1,200. What's the second prize? So it's going to be the ticket price for raffles is $1 each, but if you contribute $5, you get the extra raffle. You know how we did it back in the days. The extra, second prize $500, third prize $300. You can't go wrong with that. You might win all three prizes. That makes it what? $2,000. So we're going to have those available. Even electronically, we could send you a copy of it if you want to contribute. You could do that also. And but you have an opportunity to win. This time, you have an opportunity to win. You could donate, and in the same place, you could get something back if you win. So thank you all for your continued support, praying that the Most High God will continue to bless each and every one. Oh, and for those of you who are coming tonight, those tickets, raffle tickets, will be available tonight, all right? So you can see me, and we probably have a table to the side for those who want to purchase the raffle tickets. And if you see me and I put pressure on you, you know what I mean? Just don't say no, just buy the raffle tickets. I'm just kidding. So we pray and hope that the Most High God will continue to bless each and every one of us. I pray that the Creator will continue to bless, keep, and protect us. And as I say these words, I pray that the Most High God will cause us all to be blessed and cause us all to return back next week at the same time. As I say these words, may the Most High God bless us all. Yivareka Yehovah Yishmareka. Ya'ir Yehovah Panawaleka Wikuneka. Yisai Yehovah Panawaleka Weasem Laka Shalom. May Yehovah bless thee and keep thee. May Yehovah make his face to shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. May Yehovah lift up his countenance upon thee and may he grant thee peace. Amen. Shalom, shalom, family. May the Most High, Creator of heaven and earth, continue to bless each and every one of us. Hallelujah.
Let's get knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, his laws and commandments. The CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, his laws and commandments. The CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming.